look, that was literally the trial of the century. In terms of just the coverage, it was the first real trial that was covered 24/7 in the media. And so I don't think, regardless of the fact that this was a robbery case, the fact that it's just not even related to that, the stigma of OJ, I don't think will ever go away.
No, it was what, 96, 97 when that trial happened?
Mm-hmm. 95,
like
I think.
It was 95?
Right.
Yeah, I was in college when that was going on. I remember watching it on TV. I think they interrupted the NBA Finals or something along those lines for that.
the Bronco chase.
Yeah, for the Bronco chase. So yeah, it's no surprise that he got nailed for the robbery stuff. I mean, he had to pay. That was it. It was a trial tax.
Yeah. So the other thing that strikes me about this that I try to always tell other lawyers, especially younger lawyers, is that this from not just the Bronco chase and the trial and the civil case, but everything that happened after that, he is truly a case study of our justice system, in that you saw elements of everything. I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched the 30 for 30 on ESPN about the OJ trial. I mean, you look at what's happened and how it affected race relations following on the heels of Rodney King, and how a lot of people felt that they had an urban jury who was getting retribution for the verdict in Rodney King. I mean, there was so much around this, not just the fact that he was a pro football player charged with murder, but it happened in LA at the time when there was really bad race relations. And so you look at everything and people want to throw that in there, but I also look at the trial itself and say, this was a textbook case of reasonable doubt. For everybody to study.
It was a textbook case of reasonable doubt. And I think one thing that was interesting and the most historic about it, because how many times does someone have the financial wherewithal to go toe-to-toe with the government in that type of case? And additionally, that was almost historic in the fact, when has an African American ever had that type of firepower to go toe-to-toe with the government and hold their own? Especially since, I mean, it's been almost an underlying, no one talks about it, but in the system, if you don't have finances to pay for your, and I think there's some great appointed attorneys, but to pay for your experts and everything you need, you're not going to do as well as those who are well-heeled.
Well, I mean, for decades, and we've been carping on it on this show forever about our bail system. And the fact
bond.
that
Absolutely.
If you can't even afford to get out, your chances of being able to defend yourself go way down. And here is a guy that had the unlimited resources, basically, to fight the state on a murder charge. And so I just, a lot of people are out there saying, why are we still talking about this guy? Why are we still talking about this case?
I think it's also a good example of why in trial, at least in Texas, we are not allowed, or they are not allowed to talk about a defendant's prior criminal history, prior, to that trial. This is exactly why, to avoid that assumption of guilt and the prejudice that comes along with it. And even recently with the new case law coming down this year, where the states can start, something as simple as misdemeanor DWI, your second offense, they can talk about usually it wasn't until felony, because obviously we're in felony for a reason, but now it's even trickled down to the misdemeanor. There are a lot of great cases for trial that people are just taking guilty pleas and they're taking convictions because they're afraid if the jury's going to hear about the first one, they're naturally going to think I did the second. Mm-hmm. And, I've got a lot of cases like that on doc, and I think this is a clear example of the harm that obviously, a big case like this, you can't, get around that. But,
well, and OJ's such the outlier or anomaly, if you will, because a lot of ways to correct perhaps a high publicity case is to transfer the venue, right? If you got a locally high publicity case, you're worried about a tainted jury pool, you transfer the case. I mean, where the hell is OJ going to go that nobody knows about his background?
Yeah, he can't. Absolutely. There was no place to go.
No.
Yeah.
No, so I mean,
there's a district up in Alaska somewhere.
Yeah, up at the Arctic Circle.
Where they don't have television.
I mean, for all the fanfare this got, it is going to be even more of a spectacle when he's actually released in October. I'm sure we'll talk about that, and I'm interested to see what happens. There was somebody posted and said, leading up to this that Vegas was taking odds on whether or not he would be released. And I said, well, hell, I don't want odds on that because that looks like a pretty foregone conclusion. I want odds about whether or not he's going to violate the terms of his parole, and see what those odds are.